So this is 1 Peter 4, the scripture for the 16th of July. Suffering's hard. 1 Peter was written to many congregations who were being actively persecuted and harmed because of their beliefs. Their willingness to suffer pointed to their willingness to be numbered with Christ in the Christian faith more than they were more than they were afraid of what the Roman Empire at that time might do, what the state might do. To choose Jesus above personal comfort over and over and over again, that is to defeat sin. That is equivalent to living in line with God's will. And it's very hard. It's what we're called to do when God calls us to be holy as God is holy. Now, of course, this way of understanding life is going to change your behavior. It can't help but change your behavior. And the people that you called friends before, well, they might not act as friends anymore once you begin to shape your life around Jesus. You may not do the same things you were doing before, and you may not be hanging out with the same people you were hanging out with before. Your old friends might wonder why you aren't any fun anymore. Maybe you've heard that. Or maybe they'll wonder why you're living differently than you once did. Remember, you can't control them, but you can control yourself. And if you are living in line with the gospel, then there are going to be certain folks who will continue to walk with you and certain folks who are going to go a different way. And that's going to be heartbreaking. There may be some deep, lasting friendships you thought you were going to have until the end of your time on earth together. And it may fracture those friendships. And that sucks. And because you can't control other people, you can only control yourself. What you're called to do is live according to God's will. They're going to do, other people will, what they're going to do. Some might even feel jealous that you're able to live with such freedom and with such purpose. And you might be a light to them that you don't know that you were until 10, 20, 30 years later. Just like the trials that Peter names in chapter 1, verse 6, just like they are varied, so too is God's grace multifaceted. The same Greek word lies behind both of these adjectives here. And God's grace gives us the strength to stand against those who will speak out against the mutual love Christians have for one another, the hospitality we offer to one another. That's why God gives us so many different spiritual gifts, as we see in 1 Corinthians 12. I've linked the video to 1 Corinthians 12 below. Different contexts are going to require different manifestations of grace. And we're going to need different types of Christians during different times with different gifts. Now, the one thing that I do want to say to close out this chapter is that Christians are just as capable as non-Christians in order to incur suffering for inane behavior, just moronic behavior. Just because you're a Christian and you're getting slammed doesn't mean you're justified in being reviled. It doesn't mean you're being reviled for Jesus' sake. If you're suffering because you ruined someone's life, that's what's behind the Greek word for murder here. Just because you're suffering because you took someone's stuff, that's thievery. Or if you're suffering because you did something evil, then you kind of deserve it. I'm sorry, but maybe you need to act a little bit better. The fourth word that Peter uses here is mischief maker or troublesome meddler. He uses this at the end of verse 15, and it literally means to appoint yourself as bishop over someone else's life. And if you do this and you suffer, I guarantee you deserve it, because nobody likes being told what to do by somebody they don't go to for advice. We do this as Christians when we insist cashiers or checkout clerks wish us Merry Christmas during the Christmas season in November or December. And we need to be willing to call ourselves out on this, that this is unacceptable for Christians to demand that other people treat them the way that they think they ought to be treated. That's not what we're called to as Christians. That's appointing ourselves as bishops over someone else's life. And while we may feel genuinely frustrated that other people don't celebrate and take joy in Christmas the same way we do, We can't have a martyr complex over this. Judgment begins with the house of God. And so we need to find in ourselves errors before we go out and point them out for other people. Instead of having a martyr complex, we need to serve Christ. We need to count any sufferings we receive as gain and trust in God's goodness. I wonder, when have you tried to control a person's response to your faith? And that's all for 1 Peter chapter 4. Tomorrow, the 17th of July, we'll look at 1 Peter chapter 5. May God bless you in your reading of Scripture.